Good evening, everyone. September 26, 2023, Bridgewater Township Zoning Board of Adjustment. It's a regular meeting. Call the meeting to order. Both adequate and electronic notice of this meeting specifying the time, place, and manner in which such notice was provided in accordance with Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10:4-6. Specifically, on April 19, 2023, proper notice was sent to the Courier News and the Star Ledger and filed with the clerk at the Township of Bridgewater and posted on the bulletin board at the municipal building. Please be aware of the Zoning Board of Adjustment policy for public hearings. No new applications will be heard after 9:30 p.m., and no new testimony will be taken after 10 p.m. If you're able, please rise for the salute to the flag.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Good evening, Roger. Can we have a roll call, please?
Sir. Mr. Booth?
Here.
Wiley?
Here.
Mr. Spizza? Absent. Mr. Min?
Yes.
Mr. Tweedy?
Here.
Mr. Fresco?
Here.
Mr. Bongiorno?
Here.
Mr. Rayevsky?
Here.
Mr. Seacat?
Here.
Mr. Gulak?
Here.
Mr. Garcia?
Here.
Ms. Doyle? Absent. Mr. Burr? Absent. Mr. Roller?
I'm here.
With Mr. Spizza's absence, alternate number one, Mr. Rayevsky.
Great. Thank you very much, Roger. Next up, we have, we're going to open up the meeting to the members of the public that would like to speak on any matter that is not on our agenda this evening. Please approach the microphone. All right, seeing none, I'm going to close that portion. We've got 4 minutes up for approval, and we've kind of discovered that there's multiple attendance issues and voting issues. So Ms. Min has been kind enough to, she's going to work with Joanne in our land use office. We're going to get them back to our next meeting on October 10th for a vote. And with that, we're going to move to applications, and we're going to do 74 Sycamore Avenue up first. Aye. On forward. Sure. And just make sure you're talking to the microphone, and we're going to do some housekeeping real quick. Just check notice.
Yep, so before you log in with us, let me just advise the board that your notices were in proper form. They were sent by certified mail timely and published timely, so the board has jurisdiction. Okay. Now, are you both testifying this evening?
Yes, Mr. Cotto is the owner of the house, and I helped him with the application, Pablo Lemus.
Okay. Would you both then stand, please? Raise your right hands. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you will give to this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? And just so the record is clear, would you both identify yourselves, please?
Sure. Pablo Lemus, I'm the engineer that prepared the drawings and helped Mr. Cotto with the permit. Thank you.
John Kudo, the property owner at 74 Sycamore in Bridgewater, New Jersey.
Okay, but if you would just spell your last name for me.
It's Lemus, L-E-M as in Mary, U-S.
Okay, and you said you're the engineer?
Yes.
For the project?
I'm the engineer that prepared the drawings.
Then would you just identify for the board, just give us some of your background, educational and work experience and license status?
Yep, sure. I'm an active professional engineer in the state of New Jersey. I went to NJIT for, I studied civil engineering, so I practice civil engineering.
And you're licensed in New Jersey?
Yes.
Current?
Correct.
Okay.
What year were you licensed?
What was that?
Which year did you get your license?
Which year? It's been about
That's okay.
12 years, approximately, something like that. More, maybe more. You're testing me. I'm not sure. I don't recall. So it's been over 12 years, I would say.
Mr. Lemus, have you testified in front of other
I have, yes.
Anywhere in New Jersey?
Yes.
Okay. Anywhere that we know of?
In Hawthorne, and in Paramus.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And you're asking this board to accept your credentials as a professional engineer?
Yes,
All right, good. We accept you. Please continue.
thank you. Okay, so Mr. Kodos is looking to do an entrance on the side of his home to the basement. So the variance is for, the requirements are for side lot of, or the zoning requirement is a 20-foot for one side. The existing home is currently 7.5 feet approximately from this one side on the right side. On the left side is currently about 12 feet, and he's looking to add an entrance to the basement on the left-hand side of the property, which would then bring that from the edge of the proposed basement stairs to 8.5 feet. So that's what the variance. That's what we're asking for the variance.
Plus, you have a combined side yard variance, right?
Correct.
So can you describe that for the board, too, what those
Yeah. So the
numbers are?
combined side yard is 20 foot, and the existing is currently it would be proposed 8.5.
So the 8.5 is to the left side, the side yard variance is 8.5 on the left side,
Yes.
but the combined,
I'm sorry, I misstated that. I'm
yeah.
sorry. For the side yard, both is 50 foot. The existing is 19.7, and the proposed is 15.8.
thank you.
All right. Mr. Lemus, did you get a memo from our planner and from our engineer dated September 21st, 2023?
Yes, it did.
There's some questions in there. I believe there's 8 of them.
Yes.
As a suggestion, you go through and just hit those real quick, and
Sure.
we can follow up with the board and see if they have questions.
Yep. Like me to read each one of them and kind of go through them?
You don't have to read each one of them.
Okay.
Why don't you just go number 1 and
Okay, number one, why the outside basement is proposed. It's for access to the basement. He's looking to access the basement. That's the reason for it. The second question,
Let me ask you then, is there access inside the home?
Yes.
yeah, it's currently from the inside of the home, not from the outside.
Right.
So he's looking for an outside entrance to the home.
Okay.
The proposed stairs to the dwelling will be 3 foot wide with foundation of 3 foot 8. The application should advise the board on the construction design and the railing that is proposed. So there is a railing that's proposed. It's on the drawing. It's a 3 foot high railing all around the opening. So that's the proposed railing around the entrance. The applicant should explain the impacts of the addition to the neighbor to the west. He does have a neighbor on the west side or the left-hand side of the property. He has spoken to the neighbor, and the neighbor's okay with having the entrance there, so the neighbor doesn't object to it. Will there be an impact, or will there be an issue of water collecting on the footing of the stairs? We did plan on putting a little floor drain on the base there, so that should drain out. So we don't see an issue with that. Are there any utilities on that side of the dwelling? There aren't any as far as we could tell. If approved, a minor grading plan will be required. If there's something required for a grading plan, I'll be more than happy to do that if needed.
yeah, you're going to have to work with our engineering department.
Sure.
Because the houses are so close there, we do want to make sure that there's no water issues. So something very simple, and the engineering department will walk you through it.
Okay.
You know, that's something that we're going to need to stipulate too, that you're going to work with Bill Burr and our engineers to make sure that complies.
No problem, we could do that. So recommended that no developer agreement is required. Yep, there's no developer agreement here. And a compliance report for a simple variance should be submitted. So I wasn't sure what that is, but if there's another form that needs to be filled out, I could do that, or compliance report.
So the compliance report is, there's a form that you'll have to fill out. It'll ask for certain information and documents. You kind of submit it to the planner in a binder format. In this case, it's very small.
Okay, great. No issue. We'll fill that form out. So that was the eight comments that I had there.
I have a question for him.
Please, let's open up questions.
Yeah, the question I have is that the new staircase that you're building is along the longer side of the house. Now, if you go towards the back, there's like an L shape. So can you put that staircase over the back side? Was it possible or not possible?
Yeah, the preference was to have it on the side there, just because it's easier to get in, you know? I mean, you have, it's just easier to access from the side. So the preference was to do it on the side there.
Well, I think if it were in the back of the house, as Ms. Amin is suggesting, you'd actually have more room to get in and out of that stairway than you would where you're proposing it, where there's a very small amount of space between the property line and the proposed stairway.
Yeah, and part of the issue too is on this, and this, you can't see it from the survey drawing, but there is an entrance to the house on, you can kind of see from the little bit of sidewalk on the back side. There's an entrance into that part of the house from that side, so it gets very tight there. You can't really see it from the survey drawing, but on the back side there, you got the pavers in the back and it wraps around towards the left on the inside of that corner. So then there's an entrance also from on the first floor into that area. So it would be very tight to build those stairs there.
Any other questions from the board?
Where the pavers are depicted on this little drawing here, that leads to the back of the house. There's not a door there, am I correct? The door is around the side?
Yeah, it's around the side, yeah.
Is there a basement under that entryway? Is that part of the larger basement, or is that just an addition? So that kind of inhibits the opportunity to put an entrance to the basement in the back of the house. Thank you.
All right, members of the public, questions for Mr. Lewis? All right, seeing none. Anything further you guys wish to add? Rich, do you have anything further? You want to go through the stipulations?
Yeah, do you have any other testimony?
No.
Okay, so if there's a motion to approve, the conditions would be that they'll add a floor drain at the foot of the stairs. There'll be a minor grading plan consistent with the township engineer's requirements, and they will submit a compliance report for a simple variance. That was really it. That's all I had.
All right, very good. All right, unless there's anything further, I'm going to open it up to deliberations to the board, if that's okay.
Yep.
All right, great. Mr. Fresco, down to you, sir.
Yeah, 10 people were noticed, 10 neighbors were noticed, and none of them are here, so I assume that, your neighbor to the west, you testified that they were okay with it. I mean, it's a darn narrow lot, and, it's a little scary, honestly, but, it seems like the plans look fine, it seems on the up and up, so I feel all right about it.
Thank you. Mr. Sweeney?
Yeah, it's clearly a hardship case. You've got a very undersized lot, which severely limits what can be done on the lot without requiring variances. And while the proposed stairway will exacerbate one of the side yard encroachments, it's not a whole lot of space we're talking about. So I'm in favor of granting the application.
Mrs. Amin?
Yeah, it's a simple variance, and it's a hardship, like Mr. Sweeney. So I'm in favor of approving.
I have no problem with it, I'm in favor.
Simple variance, meet all the conditions, I'm in favor of it. I'd agree.
Can I ask one more question? Absolutely. The proposed stairway, the edge of I guess the left edge of that stairway, what's the distance to the adjacent building next to it?
From the
Stairway?
Yeah, from the proposed stairway to the property line?
No, to the adjacent building itself.
Oh, to the adjacent building. Yeah, well, the existing building to the property line is about 12 and a half. So the proposed would be 7 and, what did I say before?
To the property line.
Yeah, to the property line.
From the house
Yeah.
to the property line, I'd say
It's like, he thinks about 15 foot to the property line from our property line to the other house. They have yeah, they have a driveway in between, so they have a driveway on their side.
I would support the application as is described.
Mr. Messi?
I'm okay with the application considering the factors that we're working with. Thank you.
I agree with the board, and with that, I look for a motion to approve.
I move.
Mr. Wiley, Mr. Bongiorno. Roll call vote, please. Yes.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
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 Great,
All right,
thank you.
Approved.
Thank you all.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We're going to move forward with 32 Rhea Street. Mr. Sullivan, good evening.
Good evening. John Sullivan from the offices of Vestola and Sullivan, representing the applicant. So I asked Mr. Oliver.
Yes, sir. I've reviewed the notices. They're in proper form. They were mailed timely by certified mail and published timely, so the board does have jurisdiction.
Thank you. Just a brief introduction to the application. Property is located at 32 Rhea Street. It's Lot 7 in Block 333, as designated on your map. The application before you tonight is for a D variance for floor area ratio and several bulk variances. The property right now is located in the R10 zoning district. It's a corner lot, roughly 7,900 square feet, and it's improved with a single-family dwelling and a couple of other shed, swimming pool, and a couple of decks. As I mentioned, we are here for the floor area ratio variance and some bulk variances. What they propose to do is to construct an addition, and on the first floor, that would add a garage, as well as some expanded living space on the first floor. They would also be proposing to add a second floor addition, which would expand this house essentially from 2 bedrooms and 1.5 bath to 4 bedroom and 3.5 baths. Also, as part of this, they wanted to add a covered porch and a deck. The plans we've submitted are the architectural plans prepared by Wellish Architect. They are dated January 1st of this year. And variance plan prepared by Ensure Plan, which was dated December 23rd of 2022, and last revised July 21st of 2023. The witnesses we have tonight, I have Mr. Nassifar, who is the applicant. I have Mr. Wellish, who is our architect. I have Mr. Scott, who is our engineer, and Mr. Castellano, who is our licensed professional planner. If I may, I would begin with Mr. Nassifar.
Mr. Nassar, would you raise your right hand, please? Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you will give to this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? For the record, would you state your full name, please? Thank you. You can be seated. Thank you.
Mr. Nassifar, you and your wife own the property at 32 Rhea Street?
That's right.
And you've owned that since May of 2016?
Yes.
And do you reside there?
Yes.
And who else resides there with you?
My 2 kids.
And how old are they?
They are 2 girls and they are 9 and 6.
And the property is currently improved with a single-family dwelling?
That's right.
And that's a 1-story dwelling?
Yes.
And right now, there is no garage?
No garage.
And how many bedrooms and how many bathrooms do you have?
It has 2 bedrooms and 1.5 bathroom.
And the other rooms in the house are kitchen, family room, and a dining room?
That's right.
Is there a basement?
Yes.
And right now, with the children, do the 2 girls share a bedroom?
Yes.
And you do propose to construct an addition in accordance with the plans that we've submitted. Can you explain to the board the added space and what that will be used for?
Yeah, so in the proposed plan, we are constructing 3 bedrooms overall. What means 1 master bedroom on the second floor, 2 kids bedroom on the second floor for both the kids, and the expansion of the current living space which we have it right now.
And that would expand this from 2 bedrooms to 4 bedrooms, is that correct?
That's right.
And right now you have a bath and a half?
Yes.
And if this were approved, how many bathrooms would you have?
Total 3.5 bath we will have.
And as part of this addition, it would also add the garage.
That's right.
Can you explain to the board what's the motivation? Why do you want to do this?
So I'm been living in Bridgewater from March of 2014, and I moved into this house May 2016. My kids were really small at that time. They started growing up. We started facing the space crunch. Not enough space to put their study tables in their room. Not enough space to have their any sort of a keyboard or anything which they like to play in the entire house. Particularly, our bedrooms are also small, and I like Bridgewater personally. My kids they grew over here. Their school have started over here. So right now, the main motivation is just to provide the enough space for them to have enough space for everyone. In fact, post-COVID, as everybody knows, we started working hybrid. So I have to set up some of my office work also at home, but sometimes I have to also go to work on Wednesdays and Thursdays, and the space crunch and not having enough number of bathrooms create a lot of time hassle for everyone. So those are the kind of main key factors of considering improving the entire dwelling.
Okay, and you've had the opportunity to review the joint engineer and planner report dated September 21st of this year.
Yes.
And a couple of items in particular. Item number 8 talks about recommending an installation of street trees.
Yes.
Is that something you would be agreeable to if required by the board?
Yes.
And item number 9 talks about installing a landscape buffer.
Yes.
Is that something you'd be willing to do if required by the board?
Yes.
And number 10 asks if there's any underground storage tank, septic systems, or well water. Does any of that exist on the site?
No.
And you did provide an underground storage tank scan that was passed on to the soil to show that there was no tank when you did that scan several years ago.
That's right.
And then item 12 talks about sidewalks. Are there any other sidewalks in the area on either Reha or on Raydell?
No.
And you would not propose to install a sidewalk?
That's right. Yeah.
That's all I have for Mr. Nelson.
Questions? I have a question. I'm looking at one of your diagrams, and could you walk me through the proposed coverage calculations?
We'll have that done through a combination of our architect, our engineer, and our planner.
Okay, that'll be later.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Naskar, there's an existing deck on the right side of the house and another pool deck behind the house where your above-ground pool is. Will both of those decks remain?
So the deck on the side, basically, which is attached to the kitchen on the southern side, we are planning to take it away.
You're going to take off the deck on the right-hand side of the house?
Right-hand side of the.
Okay.
Is the pool staying?
Yeah, the pool.
The deck on the pool, that's gonna stay?
Yes.
You know, once in a while, people come in here and they, you know, they don't ask for a lot, you know, they ask for just exactly what they need, and sometimes we kind of feel like, oh, you know, they could have asked for a little bit more, but, I mean, you really, you know, your side yard ask here is substantial. Have you discussed with your architect other options than cutting a 20-foot down to 10? I mean, have you looked, and I'm not gonna make suggestions, it's not my thing to tell you what other options, but have you discussed other options? Because it is a really big ask, especially with a home on that side.
Yeah, so basically, if it is required, we can actually plan to take the pool and, the corresponding deck also off. I mean, basically, if it is really impacting the.
Well, I'm more referring, you know, to the driveway, and the garage, you know, that side of the home, right? That, correct me if I'm wrong, that's the side, right, that it's existing is 20 and the proposed is 10 and a half? Am I right with that? Yeah, I think I am. Side yard, 1. I guess if this is, I mean, yeah, the side that you're expanding on. I mean, have you looked, again, I'm not gonna make suggestions, but at other options to maybe lessen the amount? Just more of a general question. You don't have to look right now. I'm just asking, was it a consideration?
No, because, yeah. So, I mean, there was no room for that cut down or reducing that particular space over there, owing to the fact that the garage which has been put over there, that's actually as per the code, the space which is required for the garage, right? And I mean, yeah, there is no room. The problem is there is no room over there on that side.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. NASCAR, I previously asked you about the deck on the right-hand side of the house.
Yes,
You said you're going to remove it.
yes.
On the plans that show what you're proposing to do, there is a deck on the
On that-
right-hand side of the house. So is there or is there not going to be a deck?
So, as per the original plan, if you see, the deck on the right-hand side, it's been already the serrated red lines. That's been taken off from the property, the index. Yeah.
I'm confused.
Yes, the first page of the variance plan shows existing conditions. And if you look at that deck there, it's a rather large deck
Yeah.
with steps coming up from either side.
Right.
And then if we shift to page 2, the proposal is to reduce that deck by dramatically the size. And I think the confusion might come in that NASCAR considers that not so much a deck, but
It's a stair.
more of a stairway.
Yeah.
So there is a deck, but it's quite a bit smaller than what's there now. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other board questions?
Yes. How would you describe the size of your lot compared to other lots in the neighborhood?
I mean, there are smaller lots in my neighborhood. Mine one, means there are 4 or 5 lots like that I have seen. Those are of my size, but other lots are quite bigger in my neighborhood actually.
Okay, and in terms of your proposed project here, the size of that home, how does that compare to the other homes currently in the neighborhood?
No, can you come back again?
The size of the proposed home that you're bringing to the board here, how does that size compare to the other proposed homes currently in your neighborhood?
So, I mean, size-wise, they are comparable. They are approximately of a very similar size as such around my neighborhood, yeah.
Mhm.
And there are recently 2 constructions done, which are of the very similar size. They are exactly in my lane as such. Not exactly in my lane, I think it's Radal Avenue. I think over there, there are 2 constructions which have been made exactly with the similar kind of a size requirements which I have.
Mhm.
Speak into the microphone, please. I'm having a
sorry.
hard time hearing you.
Our planner can address that in a little more detail for you.
Yeah.
He has an exhibit, and he'll be able to discuss that.
Sure.
All right, I'm going to open up to members of the public that would like to question Mr. NASCAR on his testimony. All right, seeing none, back to you, Mr. Sullivan.
Thank you. Our next witness would be Mr. Yuval Wellish. He's our architect.
Would you please continue standing and raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you will give to this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Would you just state your name for the record, please?
You said your license is in good standing? All right, good. This board accepts you. Thank you. Please continue.
Mr. Chairman, just as a moment, could you see if that microphone is working that he's standing in front of? I don't think it's turned on.
You're right, the light was off. It's on now.
Is it better now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Yes, please. I broke mine.
Hey, Suzanne, could we go over there so you can get a shot of it for the public? Thanks. And Mr. Sullivan, as we go through, just remember the folks on the internet, so, you know, they can follow along, just what page you're on. Yeah. We can see it, yes, and hopefully the folks at home can see it in a moment.
Just have to make sure that you're very close.
Is that okay? Okay.
Mr. Wellish, you're familiar with the site and you prepared the plans that we've submitted to the board?
Yes, I did.
And can you describe the dwelling floor plans and elevations for the existing home right now?
Well, the existing home, I only have the floor plans over here, not the elevations, but let me go to that page.
Mr. Wellish, what you have on that board, is that exactly what the board has in our package?
Yes, it's page 6.
Okay, nothing's been rendered, that's just a copy of our...
Same copy.
Okay.
Same.
Then, John, I'm not going to mark that. Okay.
So the existing house is about 1,000 square feet, and the basement is 1,000 square feet as well. We have an entry pretty much facing the street. We have a dining room, a living room, 2 bedrooms in the back. One is the master on the rear right side, and one is for the 2 daughters on the left rear side. There's a small half a bath connected to the master bedroom, and a bathroom right here in the middle that serves everybody else. These are the stairs to the basement, and the kitchen is on the right front. There's a deck over here. Okay, you'll see it more clear on the engineer's plan. It's more important there. And there's and there's a pool over here, but these items going to be on the engineer's plan, not on mine. I would like to continue with the description of the house. We pretty much changed the whole house, obviously. There's no garage. What we're offering right now is a garage on the front left side, a new entry, pretty much where it is now, only protruding to the front. Because today, you stand by the front door and you get wet. There's no protection of the elements or anything like that. A full second floor, and I will get to the plans in a few minutes. Okay, and you can see the other elevations on page A1 and also A2. This is the rear elevation that shows also a slider from which you can get to the pool and the backyard. This is the right side elevation. This is what you see when you drive on the other road. What I would like to go now over is the floor plans, and then I'll go back to the elevations to explain what materials we're going to use and so on. The basement will have an addition on the left side, and this is the addition of the garage. There will be a new bathroom on the right front. That's part of the, it's not an addition, but it's part of the improvement. The first floor plan is about 1278, so that's already an addition of 78 square feet. Sorry, 278 square feet. We have the garage, it's only a one-car garage. And I'll explain later on why we put it over there, because I think that you were asking about it, right? Okay, the kitchen stays exactly the same, except we took the stairs out of here, so now there's room for a dinette. We walk right into the foyer, and then the foyer is actually acting as a mudroom as well, because it has a connection to the new garage. There's a dining room. There's no living room. So the family room is actually acting as living room and family room. I want to also touch what you asked about the right side a little later, okay? There's a guest room over here, and the bathroom has two doors. You can use it from the bathroom, and you can use it from the rest of the house. The second floor has two bedrooms that share one bathroom in the middle. There's a laundry room, new staircase that goes all the way down to the basement, first floor, second floor, and so on. Master bathroom, master bedroom, one walk-in closet and one smaller, pretty much in the front, and a toilet in its own little cubby, okay? I will go back to the elevations. What we're trying to do is get like you may call it modern colonial, which I think is pretty much suitable to Bridgewater, and I think the planner probably going to touch that spot too. All the materials are going to be very durable. It's going to be asphalt roof shingles and metal over here, meaning standing seam metal roof. Every part of the house will have hardy plank siding. On the second floor, it's going to be vertical. On the first floor, it's going to be horizontal. All the windows are new. I pretty much spec Anderson 200, which is a good window. And it's going to be most likely white. We haven't made a decision about that yet. The colors are going to come later on. And if you go through all four elevations, they all get the same treatment. So I think it's going to be a great improvement to what you see today. Without going over the plans again, I would like to answer the two questions. Mr. Lespisa, right? Am I saying it right?
No, this is me.
Oh, I'm sorry. Fresco, okay. So there is no other room for a garage anywhere else. And I'll explain, because I knew this was coming. Why are you putting it over there?
And also, talk about, just because you're on it, also talk about what the normal width of a garage is versus the 11 feet as well.
There is no normal garage.
Okay.
There's a minimum.
Okay.
Normally, if you buy a house and the builder wants to give you a two-car garage, he will give you a 20 by 20, give or take. Most builders will do 22 by 22 because we live in a different society today. Everybody goes to Costco and they all bring all the merchandise home, and you need some room. Everybody needs another refrigerator. We know what, the American family is in need. So the garage is, I don't want to say minimal, but it's, I don't want to make a mistake, so let me get my.
No, it's all right. I see it. It's 11. It's 11 feet.
Yeah, it's 11 by 21. Sure, you can always shave a couple of inches, but to me, I look at it this way. And you can agree or not, but a couple of inches less for the setback will probably not have the significance of a couple of inches for the family. Not opening the door right, banging the door into the garage, and you know how kids are. They open the door and you got a dent. The depth, oh sure, it could be 20, of course. A lot of builders will give you just that, but you need some room in the garage, especially when you have a one-car garage. It's not, I mean, I usually do garages 22 by 22, if there's room. But here, you need a little bit of shelving at the very end and things that are, sports equipment. We don't have a mudroom per se, all right? And you're being thrown right into the dining room to begin with. But we had no choice, and I want to remind everybody, 120 feet is the normal for R10 width. We have 66. The square footage of the lot is supposed to be a third more than what we have. Instead of 12,000, we have 7,900 and a change. So, and I'm sure the engineer will go over that again. So the motto of what I'm trying to say is, I understand we're not standing to the standards, but I think the house has to stand to standards of some sort. We don't want to build a house that will be uncomfortable and it will be a cry for the next 55 years. We want to get, this is why we're here. We're trying to ask for a relief so we can have a house which will be nice and also, good for the family. There was no way to put it in the back because the couple wanted to keep the pool, all right? And that's why we decided to take the deck out completely on the right side. And also, everybody agrees that that deck doesn't look good from the road. It's just a nuisance. The answer, I forgot who asked about the deck, the little deck. Mr. Sweeney, it's not a deck. This is actually a landing. This is like the minimum that the code is asking us to do. All right, like 3 feet and about 8 inches on each side of the slider, and that's all. It's not really a deck. You can't sit over there and have a grill or something like that. So, and on the engineer's plan, we're going to see it a little bit more clearly.
I have a question for you. Hello?
The engineer and planner's report, item 6 says, sheet A2 shows the front porch, but not the stoop. And they...
I'll show it. It's a little bit hard to see because there's so many lines over there. This is the foyer sidewall. This is the stoop. And here are the stairs from the stoop.
Okay, and if need be, we would make that consistent with the engineering plan, correct?
I think it is. We checked our measurements and it's exactly the same. Okay. The stoop is 3 foot and 8 inches, and the foyer sidewall is 4'6". But on the engineering, it says 4.5. So this is decimal, and mine is inches. But it's the same.
Thank you.
And 14 feet and 2 inches wide.
Thank you. I think that's all I have for Mr. Wellish.
Thank you. Mrs. Amin, you had a question?
Yeah, I have a question regarding the second floor master bedroom has a bathroom.
Yes.
And that bathroom is projecting out.
Yes.
And that is what is causing the
I have a reason for
front yard violation along Rydell Avenue. Why do you have to have that little projection of 1.5 feet outside?
Because we think about the way it looks as well. It's not the practicality. I can have a bathroom smaller, of course. But I think it was a good idea of the owner. They said, because people drive along the main road, okay, and look at it, and we didn't want to have like a distance of about like 30, 40 feet more, 50 feet or something, without anything protruding out to break the monotony. That's the reason why. Just for aesthetical reasons.
If you keep the wall straight, you will reduce one of the variances that you're requesting.
I understand. But we architects think about harmony, beauty, and the way it looks. I understand what you're saying.
So there's no way to incorporate a dormer without protruding from the facade of the building?
If you only have, it's not a dormer if you have a straight wall. Then you can slap a roof on top of it and it will look weird. I mean, we can maybe push it back a little bit, but I would like to have some protrusion out.
Could you walk me through
That will be done by Mrs. Scott.
Thank you. All right, anyone else?
I have a question. I'm not clear. Is this a renovation adding to the existing house, or is it a full demolition?
No,
The
it's
existing-
not a full demolition.
Okay, thank you.
Not at all. We actually, that's the main reason why the first floor is 8 feet only, because in today's standards, and again, there's no standard, but we decided to leave it at 8, so it's not going to be higher. I mean, because the other houses are only 1 story around it, so.
I have one last question, Chairman.
Look at the plan. Everything which is in black is new, and the walls that are white are staying on the first floor.
One last question about the garage. You said you could not put the garage anywhere else. Your current rear setback is 37.5 feet.
Yes.
The minimum is 20 feet.
Yes.
Okay, so you have about 17.5 feet in the rear.
Yes. We're also talking about a lot that has 66 feet instead of 120.
Right. Now, currently the left wall of the garage is the existing wall of the house, is that correct?
Yes.
Oh, sorry, the right wall.
The right wall.
Yes.
Yes, you're right.
There is no sort of design solution here where you move the garage and the kitchen area and you extend the house to the rear?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
One question. You go down Rhea Street, not the house directly next to this house, but the street after that. They're pretty close. The front yard, is it consistent with the setback that you see in the houses?
I'm not sure about that, to be honest.
Extend any further?
I'm not sure how far they are, the other houses. Maybe Mr. Scott knows. I'm not. Do you know?
We have, the planner will have in his exhibit an aerial view, so that'll give us a general idea.
Anyone else? All right, members of the public, questions for Mr. Wellish's testimony? All right, seeing none, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Leave it here.
Our next witness will be William Scott, our engineer.
Mr. Scott, would you raise your right hand, please? Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you will give to this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Would you state your full name for the record, please?
William Scott, S-C-O-T-T.
Thank you.
Mr. Scott, would you state your qualifications for the board?
I have a Bachelor of Science degree from the Clarkston University School of Engineering in New York State. I obtained my professional engineer's license in New Jersey in 2004. It's been current ever since. I've appeared before nearly 3 dozen municipal boards, including 2 occasions before Bridgewater boards.
Welcome back. And
Thank you.
your qualifications.
Thank you. Mr. Scott, you are familiar with the site and you prepared the plans that we submitted to the board?
Yes, I do, and those plans are on the easel here as an exhibit.
And could you describe to the board the site as it exists now and then the proposed improvements to the site?
So, Lot 7, it's a corner lot at Rhea and Raydell. It's a significantly undersized lot, 66-foot width where 120 foot is required, 7,900 square feet where 12,000 is required. There is a very modestly sized, approximately 1,000 square foot home, 1 story on the site. That's shown on sheet 1 of our plan, along with the pool to the rear, shed to the rear. You also see some improvements that are notated with red hatching on sheet 1. The red hatching is existing improvements that would be removed during the course of the construction. A large deck along Radel frontage, a large 20-foot wide driveway coming in off of Rhea, and the front sidewalk.
And does that driveway as it is now go all the way to the property line there?
Yes, it does. It's a 20-foot width, or nearly a 20-foot width there. Sheet 2 of our plan also shows the paint hatching. So paint hatching would be anything that is being added to the site when you're viewing it from above. So we have a smaller deck that was discussed along the Radel frontage. We have the additions along the left or the northerly side of the existing home. And then we have the garage to the west coming in off of Rhea. We set the driveway at 12-foot width with a small parking area to the left that might allow you to maneuver a car to the side and bring a car in and out of the garage. A small landing and front sidewalk.
And the deck to the right side of the property is being removed and replaced with the landing as it was described earlier?
Yes, we have it labeled as a deck, but it's a landing made out of wood, so we labeled it as a deck.
And under the ordinance, the maximum improved coverage for this lot would be 35%?
That's right.
And the existing is 24.3%, is that correct?
Yes.
And the proposed coverage will be 28.2%?
Yes.
And that's less than what's permitted under the ordinance. I did want to direct your attention to the joint planner and engineer report. I didn't know if you had anything to add to item number 4, which talks about whether or not there's anything that can be done in the design to reduce the degree of violation on the interior sideline. I know Mr. Wellish covered that. Is there anything you would want to add to that?
I prefer not to stray into the architectural area. I mean, I'd like to think engineers can accomplish most things, but I don't know what width a garage needs to be.
And item 7 asks if the driveway would be paved and that a driveway detail be provided.
Yes, we can. It'll be a bituminous pavement, and we would add a detail.
Is the driveway paved now?
Yes.
It is? Okay, thanks.
And I think that's all I have for Mr. Scott.
Want to speak to number 11 and talk a little bit about stormwater?
So the proposed improvements do result in an increase of impervious coverage from what exists today. The increase would be 302 square feet. As an engineer, I understand we would consider that a minor increase, especially given the fact that the drainage will enter the township storm sewer directly in front of the property. We do have intense development that's proposed directly across the street. So I don't feel that it's really a measurable or a significant increase.
Mr. Scott, could you speak to the intense development across the street? Because I do think it is important to give scope and scale to your project relative to what's being built across the street, which in my opinion is intense. You're being understated.
I do understand it's a significant multifamily project. I don't have the exact scope of it, but I understand it's going to be a major change to that neighborhood. I do live in Bridgewater as well, so
Yeah, so multiple stories and right across the street, and that's to the south, correct?
To the south, yes.
You said there was 302 new feet of impervious structures?
Yes.
Isn't the garage almost 264 feet by itself?
Well,
other rooms?
So I think you have to look at the size of the existing driveway in relationship to the proposed driveway. And the fact that there is a lot of improvements on the site, but based on the way the code is interpreted in Bridgewater, the pool is not considered impervious, the decks are not considered impervious. So that visually it may be just a little deceiving.
Just concerned that you said it was 302 additional feet, and the garage is
264, and then you've got, you know, 2 other rooms plus an addition in the front. And I'm just trying to get that to add up in my head. I can't right now.
What we have on sheet 2, I have a tabulation of the existing coverage. And then below it, I have a tabulation again of the proposed coverage. So we see the existing house at 1,008 square feet, and the proposed house, which would include the garage, up at 1,547 square feet.
Garage is included in the house then?
Yes. The existing driveway, which is another big number, at 709, and the proposed driveway down at 454. So when we tabulate all that, we come up with an increase of 302.
All right, Mr. Scott, if I could suggest a letter to our township engineer, Bill Burr, to run your, number 11, your stormwater proposal past him, just to make sure he's okay. I think the language that they used here was very deliberate, and, you know, this is important to Bridgewater, and, you know, frankly, it's my most important caveat when I'm reviewing these applications to make sure stormwater ends up where it should be. Especially in the context of this massive facility that's being constructed to the south. And I want to make sure that everything is tied in, and we certainly don't want to create a problem for a neighbor.
I understand that. I do live in Bridgewater, so I'm very aware of the issues that we had. If that becomes an item that is affecting or swaying the board's decision, we could minimize the existing driveway, make it a little more narrow, and take out the side parking area, and we would reduce approximately 180 of that square footage. The reason I did the driveway in that manner, though, is anytime you have a narrow driveway and a one-car garage, most of the time in functionality you'll have a car parked on the street. So we try to avoid that. But that's an option that we could explore.
In your opinion, if you were to explore that option, does that change in square footage of coverage create an improvement that's measurable?
Well, it would bring the 300 additional square feet down to an area of 100 to 120. So again, I don't really consider as an engineer the 300 to be significant, but we would be cutting it in 2/3. So.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a question. You know, the new plan that you have, there is a deck at the back that is very close to the swimming pool, existing swimming pool. What's the distance between the deck and the swimming pool? Is that a safety hazard? That's what someone falls from the deck into the pool.
Yeah, so it's scaling out at just under 2 feet. The deck and the decks are designed with the safety railing, so no one should fall off of the deck into the pool or towards the pool.
Okay. I see, okay.
Yeah, again, I'm just calling it a deck based on the fact that it's a deck construction, a wood construction. Yes, essentially, it's just an exit.
Just out of curiosity, how come you didn't connect that deck with the pool deck?
The pool, I didn't give that any thought, honestly. The pool deck has a fence around it of its own. And I believe it would be at a slightly different elevation.
I'm just thinking you might want to consider that, put a gate, and then you've got access all the way out to the pool deck, which is going to be your major deck going forward. Just a thought.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Anyone else for Mr. Scott? All right, members of the public, questions on Mr. Scott's engineering testimony? All right, seeing none, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And our final witness would be our planner, Michael Pesolano.
You solemnly swear that the testimony you will give to this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do. Would you state your full name, spell your last name, please?
Yes, I'm Michael J. Castellano, last name is spelled P-E-S-S-O-L-A-N-O, licensed professional planner in state of New Jersey, previously qualified by the board just last year.
As long as your license is current, it's good to see you again, Mr. Pestilano. All right, good.
Thank you.
Board accepts.
Mr. Sullivan, we're going to mark that as A1, and I'll ask Mr. Pestilano just to describe what that is for the record, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That mic on?
It doesn't sound like it's on, actually.
Testing, 1, 2, 3.
Okay, how's this, everybody?
Great.
Let me give you a formal and proper greeting. Good evening, members of the board, professionals. Pleasure to be here back again with this application. I appreciate the questions that have come forth. It means a lot to me that the board cares to ask those, and we want to provide adequate answers to all of them. So first, the basics. The application is something I reviewed as well as visiting the site and the neighborhood, touched in with the applicable development regulations, master plan for the community, and discussed with project team members in preparation for my appearance tonight. There are several elements of relief. I will group them into three categories. One is the big one, which is a D4 floor area ratio variance. 25% is the limit, and we're proposing 0.325, 32.5%. Thank you. The other area of relief concerns 6 conditions that relate to existing conditions not created or proposed not created by the applicant or proposed by this application, concerning substandard lot area, substandard lot width, front setback on Radel is deficient at 20 feet where 30 feet is the requirement. This is a corner lot, so 30 feet are required on both Rehouse Street and Radel. There is an existing deficiency of side yard and rear yard setback for the existing shed in the rear corner of the property. And the rear yard pool is set back 8.5 feet, where 10 feet is the setback for that type of structure. In addition to the D4 variance, which is a new variance asked for in this application, there are 2 other items of bulk relief requested. One is the northern side yard to propose 10.5 feet setback, to the proposed garage, where 15 feet is the requirement. The second element is a slight further dip into the front yard from 20 feet to 18.6 feet with the projection that Mr. Wellish designed and described in his testimony. So those are the elements of relief. I will do a little bit more description of the setting via the exhibit that was distributed at the outset. Going to sheet 1, just some takeaways. The subject property is shown. The subject property is shown highlighted in yellow in the lower left corner of Block 333. If you look if you look north of that, north is to the top of the sheet, generally speaking, you can see a fair irregularity of lot widths on this particular segment and this particular side of Reha Street. The subject property has 66 feet in width. The one next to it just to the north is 109, followed by 55, 70, 50, 75, 75. So there is an irregular layout, if you will, not a rhythmic, consistent cadence of dwellings going along the street here. The other aspect of this image is to show south of Woodrow, between Woodrow and Radell, between Ramsey and Newberry, generally the enclave of R10 zoned lots in this area of the Findern area of the township. Going on to sheet 2 of 5, just a very simplistic representation of where this property sits relative to the zoning boundary of the R10 district. It is right at the southern edge and abutting against the RMDU district, which provides for the MDU 13, excuse me, provides for future multifamily residential development. Mr. Chairman, I think you expressed some agreement with that it's an intensive project. I would agree in the MDU 13 zone, quite a change from the vacant land that we see there today. But I'll come back to that in a moment. What is permitted there in my research, 3-story buildings, multifamily in nature, as close to Radell Street as 25 feet. It does allow for a floor area ratio of 0.6, which is substantially different, of course, than the floor area ratio we're talking about just on the other side of the street. So that provides that tidbit of setting. On to further table setting, if you will, on page 3 of 5, the subject property is shown approximately with a dashed yellow line or red balloon icon on top of the house that sits on the property today. What I was really impressed with in my visit of this neighborhood and the observation through the aerial imagery is on Reha Street in particular, you can see that there is really quite a change, if you will, in setbacks from property to property to property as you go from south to north. And also, not quite captured in this image, but in the wider image of this area between Woodrow and Radell, some evidence of buildings being fairly close to each other. But in any case, looking at the subject property relative to its neighbors to the west and to the east, this existing structure is probably the closest one to Radell Street in the area between Ramsey and Newberry Street. The front setback relative to the neighbor to the north, there was a question earlier about that. I'd say they're just about even. I did not do a measurement, but it looks to me like I stood in line with the two facades and made that conclusion. The interesting part of that is that the projection of the garage into the front yard is not violating that front yard at all because the house is set back some 42 feet from Reha today. So there is room to project. There's also room for the dwelling to the north to do the same thing in some reconfiguration someday. That's not part of this proposal, obviously, but the setback line that should be held on Reha is not being breached. Final takeaway, we have single-family residential. The predominant land use north of Radell Avenue. To the south is that vacant parcels slated for redevelopment with multifamily residential up to 40 feet high in 3 stories. That would occur just south of this property and wrap around this neighborhood, going up to a connection to East Main Street. I will come back to that in a moment. Going on to the ground photos, just so you all know what I observed in my setting my focus on the setting for this application. Image 1 on page 4 of 5 in the upper left corner is taken from the corner of Raydell and the east side of Rehas Street, just about in front of the fire hydrant at the corner, showing that the land slopes up a bit from Raydell to a plateau, and you can see the one-story building with the large deck that will be removed, protruding deeply into the front yard there. You can also see to the right of that image one of 2 very mature, thick evergreen trees that pretty much obscure the view of the rear yard, the pool, everything coming from the east approach along Raydell there. Image number 2 in the upper right, just a shot of the land use and the neighbor directly across Reha, one-story dwelling. Image number 3 directly across Raydell is the vacant land slated for multifamily development, and image 4 shows the neighbor to the rear, actually to the east, from Raydell Avenue, a 1.5-story dwelling with a hedge along Raydell Avenue. On to sheet 5 of 5. Image 5 in the upper left shows the neighbor to the north, and you can see by the vehicle parked on the pavement the property line of the applicant's property on the northern side. Mr. Scott described an improvement to pull that pavement a little bit back from the actual property line, make for less pavement in that particular area. But the takeaway for me in this image is that it shows there's a fair, generous bit of green space and access to light and air on the other side of that property line between the existing dwelling there and the property line of the applicant. In image 6, there is a view to the rear lot line, presumably indicated by the chain link fence. On the left of that is applicant's rear yard. A portion of the pool and shed can be seen, and what's on the other side can also be perceived. Image 7 in the lower left shows the northern side of the existing home where the horizontal protrusions will be part of the ground floor expansion. And finally, image 8 shows two-level buildings that are corner lots at the corner of Ramsey and Raydell Avenue. So that provides everyone now with the same understanding of the setting that I have. And I want to move forward now with, unless there are questions, move forward with the testimony on the floor area ratio part of this application. The case law guides boards to review FAR variances pursuant to the Coventry standard, which is to basically evaluate the application to determine if the site itself can handle any of the problems that may be associated with the excess FAR. And to quantify that, it's roughly 590 square feet of additional floor area. That is the difference between 0.25 FAR and 0.325 FAR. So all D variances require an evaluation of the application to determine if there are special reasons for granting approval in the context of that overview that I just painted about the review standard. First and foremost, we have a very undersized site. This is a corner lot. Today, if it were created, it would require 12,000 square feet. It has 7,920 square feet and a very narrow width of 66 feet where 120 feet is required. If you look at the drawing on Mr. Scott's sheet 1, you can see that much of the home sits within the front setback of Raydell today. The building envelope is ridiculously tiny. A mobile home might not even fit properly within the rectangle that is left when you deduct the two front yards and the side and rear yard. However, this has been on the landscape for quite some time, and it's a fixture in the neighborhood, not in any way offensive in this configuration. But if this were a conforming 100 by 120-foot lot, the proposed FAR, the proposed floor area of 2,578 square feet would amount to an FAR of 21.4%. But we don't have that much land area, so the math constrains the understanding of the ask here, making it look larger than it is. But if this were a conforming lot, a home that is of the size proposed would be buildable without a variance in this neighborhood. So that's one aspect that struck me right away. The house will house a basic family, nothing more or more elaborate than that. Currently, a family of 4 lives there, and providing adequate housing for a family certainly advances Purpose A of the municipal land use law to promote the general welfare. At least 2 parking spaces are provided for the 2 cars of the applicant, and that conforms, in my opinion, with the residential site improvement standard for that aspect. So there is no lack of adequate parking, which is, in my experience, one of the key indicators of excess intensity of use via the FAR measurement. Despite the additional FAR, the site, in my opinion, will function properly and safely, as would any single-family dwelling in the township of Bridgewater. 2 frontages of this corner lot affords exceptionally good access for emergency responders. A fire hydrant is even at the southwest corner of this particular lot. So I find that Purpose B of the municipal land use law to provide for safety from fire, flood, and panic is advanced very well by this particular configuration, this particular setting for this application. The home, but as I perceive the design drawings and look at the site and visualize it being there, it will still appear to sit generally centered on this lot with adequate light, air, and open space for the applicant and the 2 immediately adjacent neighbors. Purpose C and the municipal land use law speaks to providing adequate light, air, and open space. Notably, the proposed home will still remain well below the lot coverage limit of 35%. It was stated before 28.2% is the proposal. Between parking, height, and coverage, those are the touch points for me when I look at an FAR application critically. When those are in conformance, I don't find a substantial reach with the application. It's keeping the dwelling within the confines of reasonable appearance and fit. The proposed expansion will include attractive design elements, again, in my opinion, which will upgrade the appearance of the neighborhood. This advances Purpose I of the municipal land use law to promote a desirable visual environment. I really liked and complimented my clients on the design they arrived at. The front-facing Rehas Street has lots of interesting articulation and gables and design elements, but it still, it doesn't cause the building to sprawl. It keeps it in linear fashion, running with the length part of the lot quite nicely while meeting all of their space needs. The expansion of living space effectively allows accommodation of the space needs of an existing resident family without any contribution to sprawl. Purpose J of the municipal land use law says let's not have sprawl. And it also promotes Purpose M, the efficient use of land, for obvious reasons. Most importantly, though, a newly refreshed dwelling unit will not only more adequately house a growing family, in other words, prevent overcrowding from happening, but also signal and further encourage upkeep and ongoing reinvestment in a very nice neighborhood. Again, turning back to purpose A, promotion of the general welfare. All of these special reasons, in my opinion, serve to preserve or improve the quality of life. One of the key master plan themes that occurs in all of the master plan documents, quality of life in the township, particularly in the residential neighborhoods. This proposal, I think, lands squarely in that category instead of being anything detrimental. Those are the positive criteria. I believe that the site will accommodate all of the expansion, which is not a lot on the ground. It's more vertical in a nice, appealing manner without imposing on anybody in particular. As to the negative criteria, is there a substantial public detriment? I must conclude that there's no impact of a substantially detrimental nature here. The principal impact is visual, but since the existing adequate spacing will be maintained around the expanded home, I must conclude that visual harmony will still prevail. Again, coming back to my initial observation through looking at the neighborhood in person and in the aerial bird's eye view perspective, the area is not one of a rhythmic, consistent placement of dwellings and spacing. It's erratic. There are very sharp changes between front setbacks in particular, and particularly along Reha Street. Very great differences in spacing sideways between dwellings throughout this entire enclave of the R10 zone, in my observation. I don't believe that the project will result in a significant reduction in light, air, and open space. The proposed expansion will stay well within the limits of lot coverage and building height. The site improvements will encourage continued upgrades and ongoing investment in this excellent neighborhood rather than the opposite, constraining investment and reinvestment. The second story of the project will serve to buffer the neighborhood to the neighbors to the north from the visual impacts of the potentially more massive multifamily development across Raydell. Small benefit, but still a second story is right there. It's a really good placement for a second story for that particular reason. As to any substantial impairment of the zone plan or zoning ordinance, that's a second leg of the negative criteria. This project is reinforcing the residential character of this neighborhood with an appropriately sized expansion for basic additional living space. The zone plan wants single-family residential here. That's what we're continuing with this application. This project is consistent with a typical approach for accommodating a growing family, in my observation. We're keeping under the allowable limits of height and lot coverage, and the project is reasonable, in my opinion, and a good fit here, generally consistent with the purpose and intent of the zone plan and zoning ordinance. In my opinion, there's no evidence of any substantial conflict or inconsistencies with the latest master plan reexaminations of 2014, 2018, 2022. This project is reasonable in scale and compatible with the abundant evidence of modestly expanded dwellings in the surrounding neighborhood. There is nothing substantially inconsistent with the intent and purpose of the zone plan and zoning ordinance. If anything, it will have a positive effect on the overall public good by virtue of the positive effects of the proposed upgrade, thereby advancing the basic mission of the master plan to create and sustain a high quality of life through attractive residential neighborhoods. Therefore, I find no basis for any determination that approving the requested relief would impair the intent and purpose of the zone plan or zoning ordinance at all, let alone substantially. I'm going to take a breath. We're 3/4 of the way through my outline. Isn't that great? Bear with me, just a little bit more to go. As to the bulk relief, those 6 elements of existing conditions, I believe, squarely meet the criteria of the C1 subsection C test, which is related to structures lawfully or conditions on the land, of the land, and lawfully on the relating to structures being lawfully on the lot. Sorry, I stumbled there. As to the new relief, I provided very extensive testimony about why the FAR variance can be granted. For the north side yard, where 15 feet is required, and we have 4.5 feet short of that by virtue of the existing garage, that can be granted under section C1, subsection A of the statute, due to the exceptionally narrow configuration of this lot at 66 feet in width. And as for the front yard, deficiency on Raydell, 1.4 feet closer than the 20 feet that it is now, with just a small architectural element projecting, not an entire building wall. This meets the positive criteria under C1 subsection A due to the exceptionally narrow width and corner lot situation requiring 2 front yards of 30 feet. While only one C variance test need be satisfied, not both, I believe the new bulk relief can be approved pursuant to the C2 criteria as well. This is a specific piece of property. The overall project advances 6 purposes of the municipal land use law. Those are all public benefits. And per the Pullen case, boards are guided to consider the relief for the project as a whole. This relief is part of an overall positive project to upgrade this home for suitable living space in this neighborhood and allow these residents to live here comfortably as we all would like to live. The benefits in granting the new bulk relief substantially outweigh the detriments, in my opinion. So in conclusion, the applicant proposes a very positive upgrade to its living space, but not overreaching, in my opinion, and the visual quality of the surrounding neighborhood without substantial detriment. The application satisfies all criteria for D4 and C relief, and I submit to you respectfully, your approval is warranted. Thank you. I stand ready for your questions.
Just before that, Mr. Pesolano, I believe you obtained a concept plan of what might be going on
Yes.
the street. Is
Yes.
that correct?
I did indeed. With apologies, when I asked for 15 copies, I only got 6. They are available for the board to pass around. What this shows, might this be marked exhibit?
That'll be A2.
A2, thank you.
Would you put today's date on it as well, Mr. Sullivan?
A2 with today's date. A2 it's a matter of public record. It's contained on page 39 of the master plan reexamination report for the Township of Bridgewater. And it shows a representation of a prospective site plan for that multifamily residential development that I was alluding to earlier. Rehouse Street is near the right terminus of the row of multifamily buildings, and the subject property directly across from one of those buildings, or a couple of those buildings. So that's the nature of the differential between intensity, and in this regard, the subject development, the proposal, serves as a bit of a step down from 60.60 FAR to the 0.25 FAR. At 0.325, a little over. I don't find that to be an egregious differential in this particular setting.
Mr. Pesolano.
Please.
This project was on the property to the east or to the north? I guess that's lot 6 or lot 8. Would you still need an FAR variant? Project on those lots?
No. Not number 8, number 6, no either. A 12,000 square foot lot can accommodate the size dwelling that is proposed.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Members of the public, for Mr. Pesolano's testimony. All right, seeing none. Mr. Sullivan, we're going to take a quick break, if that's okay with you, and when we return, the time is 8:30. 8:40, we're going to take a break, come back, and you can wrap up, and then we'll start deliberations.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. We're adjourned 8:30.
Oh, okay. I used to live on Fairmount Avenue, which is like around over here, yeah, somewhere.
You name it, they've got something for
This is the
Oh,
lot.
okay. All right, you just say-
I wasn't kidding.
I'll ask John to go over that, but thank you. All right, we're gonna come back in session. It's 8:40. Everyone, Roger, could you get a roll call, please? Here.
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 I'm here.
Thank you, sir. All right, Mr. Sullivan. You're here.
Just before I start, just wanted to see if there's any public comment.
Yes, why don't you do your wrap-up, and then I'm gonna ask for members of the public if they would like to speak for or against the application.
I can do that.
All right, thank you.
We feel that this application is appropriate in terms of, number one, the fact that it is going to continue to be a single-family home, which is a permitted use in the district. We think it's on an appropriate scale, and it's going to fit well into this residential neighborhood. I heard a couple concerns, I think, from the board as to, are we asking for too much? Are we putting too much here? And I think the answer to that is no. We'll start with the practical hardships on this lot. Not only are we an undersized lot in terms of area and width, but we're also a corner lot. So instead of having, two 15-foot side yard setbacks, we have one 15-foot side yard setback, and on the other side, we have to have 30 feet. So variances are created just by the nature of the size of the lot and its location as a corner lot. Mr. Pesolano had indicated in his testimony the Coventry standard, and when you're dealing with an FAR variance, the need to show that the lot can accommodate the use that we want to put it to. And I think we've been able to show that. In terms of the FAR going from 0.25 to 0.325, we're only talking about a little over 500 square feet, and most of that is taken up by the second floor. I think it's also important to notice that we do not need variances, nor are we requesting variances for the height. I believe what's allowed in terms of height is 2.5-story, 35 feet, and we're only proposing a 2-story, just over 30 feet. So we do not need a height variance, although there might not be a lot of 2 stories in the area. We certainly don't need a height variance. The other thing is we do not need a lot coverage variance. We're roughly 7% less in terms of lot coverage than what is permitted by the ordinance. And finally, we are able to meet the parking requirements of the ordinance. So I really do feel that what we're asking for is a modest-sized home, which would even look it would actually look small if we had a larger lot, one that matched the zoning district. So I do believe that this particular lot can accommodate what we're asking you to approve. I think it'll definitely be a visual and aesthetic upgrade to the neighborhood. And if we start matching it up, what's going to go across Raydell in the redevelopment area, I think that puts it into an appropriate perspective that we're really not asking for much according to what's going to end up across the street from us. So without going into and repeating all of the testimony you already heard, those were just some of the points I wanted to make. And with that said, we would ask that you consider granting the application.
All right, thank you, Mr. Sullivan.
Thank you.
Mr. Oliver, before we get into any final stipulation, I want to open it up to members of the public that would like to speak for or against this project. All right, seeing none, why don't you take us through some of the stipulations and...
Sure. So if the board were inclined to grant the application, there was some discussion about potential conditions relating back to the joint planning engineering memo. There would be conditions with respect to paragraph 7, providing a detail for the driveway. Number 8, with respect to street trees, a plan that would be sufficient to the professional planner. Again, number 9. I'm not sure we really discussed number 9.
Yeah,
Maybe we
I think
need a
Mr.
little more
Sullivan-
on number 9 in terms of a buffer.
We believe Mr. Nazar agreed to number 9. Do you want to clarify that?
We did. Yeah, and we'd be more than happy to work with Scarlett or the board engineer to come up with something that's acceptable. But yeah, definitely we would put in that landscape screen.
Okay, and I think number 10's been satisfied. You did provide an underground tank report earlier. With respect to number 11, we discussed just having the applicant provide, or the applicant's engineer provide a letter to the township engineer confirming that the project would not cause any runoff impact to adjacent properties. What about number 12? Did we go through
We have no
12?
sidewalks in that neighborhood, and I believe Mr. Nazar confirmed that. I didn't see any on my inspection. So I'm inclined to not require sidewalks, but if the board sees it necessary.
So something for discussion now,
supplemental
right?
deliberations, let's bring that up.
Okay. There'd be no developer's agreement required, and there would be the compliance report for a simple variance required. Let me just make sure I didn't have anything else. Nope, that was all of them.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Vesio, let's send it down to you. Let's open deliberations. Your thoughts, please.
Sure. Thank you for the presentation today. My first reaction here was that the project was really kind of pushing the envelope here in terms of like the FAR and the side yard coverage. Listened to his testimony, and I think the architectural design that's proposed is elegant. The Nassikar family, I have my own growing family as well, so I understand that we do all need some room, especially when we have young children, growing children. So I would be in favor for this application.
Thank you. Mr. Kulak.
Yeah, I'm a resident of Ramsey Street, so I'm very familiar with the neighborhood. This is a neighborhood that is on the upswing. There's been a lot of redevelopment, some new construction. A lot of people have been rehabbing houses. It's nice to see a family that has established roots and is wanting to stay, continue to improve the neighborhood by proposing this kind of expansion of their property, which allows them to stay in the same neighborhood and schools, and at the same time provides the neighborhood a much-needed upgrade, something that is visually appealing. And when you compare this modest request to the high-density, intense use across Raydell, which calls for at least 220 multifamily apartments, you're talking about a complete departure from the neighborhood that exists. And under the prior administration, this was a project that they pushed through, much to the chagrin and opposition of those of us who live in the neighborhood. But since we're all going to be stuck with it, should it ever be built, this kind of residential development will at least provide us some sense of a neighborhood as we move forward. So I would be in favor of approving this particular expansion.
Thank you. Mr. Seekett.
Yeah, after reviewing this, I agree with everything that's been said. Like, I like the design of the house and the home. I believe it'll definitely improve the neighborhood, and I can appreciate the need for a growing family to have increased space on an undersized lot. I fully understand that, and I would approve this.
Mr. Gajewski.
As a father of 2 daughters, I think living in a home with a single bathroom, full bath, is a very definition of a hardship. But that aside, the front yard setbacks, I think it's consistent with the other homes that are on the street, with many of them. The side yard, it's the best that you can do on the narrowness of this lot, and the FAR is really a function of the lot size. So I'm very much in favor of this. Good luck.
Thank you. Mr. Bonjour.
I echo my fellow board members. I don't think we need sidewalks. I would not change the driveway as you laid out in your plan. walkway from the back deck to the pool deck. I think that's something that you really should do and really should think about doing. I think it's a no-brainer. I think this is going to be an addition to the neighborhood, and I would be in favor of the application.
I think that you did a terrific job on the presentation. I'm glad you want to stay in Bridgewater. It's definitely going to be an upgrade to the neighborhood and to your house and give you more room. And sidewalks, we think we can waive that, and I'm in favor of the application.
All right, thank you. I'm in agreement. I think the site can definitely accommodate the greater FAR. I don't think there's any substantial detriment to the neighborhood. In fact, I think it's perfectly in character. I don't think there's any impairment or intent of the Bridgewater Master Plan. I think what has happened across the street, is the very definition of spot zoning. It's disappointing because I do think that project approved by the Hayes administration is definitely out of character. It's kind of everything that this board's not. So, I'm glad that we have a new administration, new people running that planning board, but I wish you the best of luck with this project. I'm glad you're going to stay in Bridgewater. I thought Mr. Pesolano's planning testimony was top-notch, and even though it was probably 10 minutes longer than it should have been, he did a heck of a job, and thank you, sir. I'm going to vote in favor. Mrs. Amin.
The lot is very small, and it's a hardship condition, so I'm in favor of approving the application.
Thank you. Mr. Sweeney.
I have very little to add to what's been said already. I agree with all the comments by other board members. The only comment I would make, though, deals with street trees and the vegetative buffer. I would encourage the owner to put at least some of those street trees on Raydell between the home and the proposed multifamily god-awful redevelopment. I would also suggest you put some additional buffer along the left side of the house where you're only going to have a, 10.5-foot setback, I believe. But other than that, I think the proposed home will be a huge improvement over what's there today, and I'm in favor of your application.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Fresco.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a welcome improvement to the neighborhood. I give a lot of credit to Mr. Wellish. It was a beautiful design. You've hired a lot of professionals. I rarely comment on that, but I do think that the application tonight was particularly efficient and poignant because obviously I did have some concerns about the setback, and I still do. Because you have to remember that you're there now, but you may sell it and maybe not. But I think that there's an adequate amount of space, and I think that your professionals prove their case, and so that's great. Good for you. Good luck with the project.
Thank you. Based on deliberation, motion for approval.
I move.
Mr. Wiley, second. Mr. Bongiorno is the second. Yes.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
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 Mr. Sullivan, you did a great job, too. I didn't want to influence my fellow board members, but thank you. That was a cookie-cutter example of how this should go. So thank you for your expertise, and please say hi to Mr. Larry for us.
I appreciate it, and thank you all for considering the application.
Good seeing you. All right, our next meeting, let me get my notes here. October 10th. We have one case, that's the Kogan case. That's a residential. We're also going to take our minutes that we tried to approve tonight. We're going to do those. And then 2 weeks after that is our next meeting. I think it's Chimney Rock Storage. But October 10th is our next meeting. And unless any other board members have anything further, a motion to adjourn.
I move.
Mr. Wiley, Mr. Bongiorno. Thank you, everyone.